In this lesson, we're going to start our examination of algebra. Algebra refers to expressions that have numbers and letters in them. But before we get to the letter part, we'll start with the idea of shapes, because that's really what we're thinking about here. If you were to examine the board right now, what shapes do you see? How would you describe it? I'm hoping you'd say you have 4 orange circles and 4 green rectangles. Look at the next set. What do you see here? Again, I'm thinking if we look at this, we have 3 green rectangles and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 orange circles. It doesn't matter the order you describe them in, just that the kinds of things that they are the way you describe them. Now, without looking back to the top, because I scrolled down too far, I can't see the shapes I had up there, could you describe for me what we actually had on the entire screen? I don't really need to go back to figure that out because I've described them. I've got 4 orange circles up there and 6 of them down here, which means on this board there were 10 orange circles. There were also 4 green rectangles and 3 green rectangles, which means there must have been 7 green rectangles. What we've just done is something we call collecting like terms, a really important idea for when we do algebra. Think of them as shapes that can be described and put the ones together that go together. You don't really need to look at the original picture anymore to know that if you have some sort of description of them. Let's try another set. They kind of all look the same, right? But they're not really the same. I've got 3 rectangles and 2 squares. They just all happen to be blue. I can't use that as a descriptor this time. Here, look at the next set. Scroll down a little bit. And what do we got here? We got 2 rectangles this time and 4 squares. So what do I have on the board all together without going back to counting them up individually again? Well, I had 3 rectangles and 2 more rectangles, which means I have 5 rectangles. And I had 2 squares and 4 squares, which means I had 6 squares. And I could go back and actually count them if I really wanted to, but why would you want to waste the time counting 1 square, 2 square, 3 square, 4 square, 5 square, 6 square if you have an expression that already describes them? All you got to do is put them together. Okay, last try. Got some circles here. Are they all the same? They're all orange. They're all the same size, but they have a tiny little difference, right? We've got some that have blue outsides, and we've got some that have green outsides. So how am I going to describe that? Well, I've got 4 blue ones and 2 green ones. I ignored the orange altogether. It didn't distinguish them for me. If we look at the next set, what do we got down here? Let's take a look. We've got 2 green and 4 blue. And I purposefully put these things out of order from before because order doesn't really matter. The fact that I've got 4 blue here and 4 blue here means I've got 8 blues and 2 green. With 2 green means there were 4 green. I've been saying the word and, but really I could say plus. It's an operation. And means I'm putting these things together, which again leads us into our idea of algebra. If you can do shapes, you can do algebra. The only difference is you have to identify the different things in a slightly different way. Okay, so here's our big idea now. Here's the note part. A polynomial. That's our fancy word for something that has letters and numbers in it. For example, this. 2x squared, 3y, 5z. Each of those things is different, like squares or circles or rectangles. They're different. You can tell how many terms you have because they're all separated by plus or minus signs. So in this case, we have 3 separate terms because there are 2 signs between them. Some words we should know: the coefficients, we call those the numbers out front. The variables are the letters or symbols inside. So like we were talking about before, rectangles and squares and circles, those would be the things that can change, the variables. And we usually use them to represent unknown numbers, like we did in our first unit when we were solving for x. Let's take a look at some things. Now some of these polynomials, they have special names. We call them monomials if they have one single term. So for instance, 4x squared. It's got one term. There's no plus or minus signs. It's got a bunch of parts and pieces, but there's only one of them. A binomial has two terms. So maybe this. My first term is 2x. My second term is 1. They're separated by the minus sign. And a trinomial contains three terms. So we looked at an example here. Which of these is which? Well, if I look at the monomials, I think the first one down here, this would be a monomial because it's only got one term. 3x squared. It's got parts and pieces, but there's no plus or minus signs separating them. If I look at 2x plus 3, that has to be a binomial. It's got two separate terms with a plus sign between them. Underneath that, at the bottom there, 2x squared minus 3x plus 2, that's got to be a trinomial. It's got three separate things because they're separated by two different signs. Okay, hopefully you can identify the rest. We got ourselves a binomial, two separate terms, one minus sign. We've got a monomial, a single term, no plus or minus signs, and another trinomial. Okay, when you look at your terms, they can have parts and pieces, numbers, letters, exponents, but it's the plus and minus signs that separate things. And our objective today is to try and collect things and make these. In order to collect, we have to go back to the beginning of today with the shapes. We can tell things apart if they were different from each other. Okay, we had circles and squares. Those are different. I can tell the shapes apart. The next one, we had squares and rectangles. They were all blue, but their shapes told them apart still. And the third one had three circles, which were all orange, but they had a slight difference. The outside edge were different colors. Those are pretty easy to tell when you're looking at shapes. When you're looking at letters, what you have to look for is, do they have the same letter? And if so, do they have the same exponent? Because if that's true, then they are like terms. So for instance, x cubed is the same as x cubed. X to the power of 3 and x to the power of 3. Those are the same. Both x's, they both have 3's on them. But over here, x to the 3 and x are actually different. Why are they different? They have different exponents. Those are not like terms. In the second one, xy, those are two letters that are stuck together. Well, that's the same as having xy. Two letters that are stuck together. But over here, I've got xw and xz. Those aren't the same. Why not? Well, they got different letters. An x with a w is different than an x with a z. I can tell those apart. In the third one, I've got a squared with a b and b with an a squared. Those are actually the same. Order doesn't matter. You can change the order of things if you want to, as long as they're stuck together. But over here, we got a problem. Instead of a squared with a b, this only has a squared. This only has b. What's this one missing? It doesn't have a b, and this one doesn't have an a squared. So this one's got all kinds of problems. Right? Letters and exponents are different from each other. That's how we can tell them apart. So now that we know what can be collected, let's take a look at some things and figure out which ones can go together. Nothing more than that at this point, just which ones can go together. So things that are like terms. Same letter, same exponent. And the way I'm going to show them is to use like symbols, like shapes, like we started with today. So 3x is the same as positive 5x. They both have the letter x in them. And also the same as positive 4x, same letters. 2y, I'm going to put an underline underneath it, is the same as 8y. They both have the letter y in them. Y is different than x. I can tell them apart. That's it. That's all I want to do. Let's take a look at b. 2xy. So I need things that have x's and y's stuck together. There's something that can go together right here. Negative 10xy. It has the same letters. Okay, how about 5x? What could it go with? Well, nothing, because nothing has just the letter x. Similarly, put a square around this one, 3y or negative 3y has nothing it can go with because it's a different letter. Let's look at the next one. Negative 2x, put a square around it. What can it go with? It can go with positive 6x. They both have the letter x. Positive 3, it can go with negative 12. They're both just numbers, no letters involved. They're like terms. And the last one here, put a circle around 5. I work from left to right usually. 5 can go with 15, positive 15. They're the same things, just numbers. Plus 3y can go with plus 9y. They have letters attached, and the letter happens to be y. And then negative 7x can go with negative 8x. They both have the letter x. Notice in all cases, the sign is attached to the number next to it. Okay, positive 15, negative 8x, positive 9y. That's going to become important when we do the next screen, where we actually start collecting them now. Okay. To collect terms, to simplify, what we're going to do is figure out which ones go together and make some symbols here, circles and squares and rectangles and stuff like that, and then add or subtract the ones that go together according to the sign in front of each term. That's kind of why I said it's important to keep track of those signs. So let's try a couple real quick. 3x, what can it go with? It can go with positive 2x. How do I do this? I go back to how I started with my shapes. We had a bunch of circles, we just added the numbers in front. 3 plus 2 makes 5, and what was I collecting? The things that have the letter x. And that's all. I'm done. Let's look at b here. 2y can go with plus y. Now there's actually a number in front of every letter. If you don't see it, draw a 1 in there to remind yourself of what number it is. It's a 1. There's 1y. What is 2y plus 1y? Well, that's 3 y's. Now the minus 4 over here has nothing to go with it. So I just stick it at the end and say, oh, minus 4. That's it, that's all. We're done. They can't go any further because the 3 has a y attached to it, and the 4 has no letters. They're not like terms. I'll try some more here. Negative 2x. It can go with positive 5x. They both have the same letter. Positive 3y can go with negative 2y. Now we collect. Negative 2 and positive 5 makes 3. 3 what? 3 x's. Those were the things that we identified as the same. Positive 3y and negative 2y, well, 3 minus 2 makes 1, positive 1, and we were collecting y's. Okay, look at D. D's got some letters, no numbers in front, so let's put the numbers in front to remind ourselves. All right, 1a can go with positive 3a's. Negative 2c can go with negative 5c. The b, well, there's nothing that has b's in it, so I can't go with anything else. Let's collect. What's 1 plus 3 make? That's 4 a's. Okay. How about negative 2c and negative 5c? Those are both negatives, so we've got a whole bunch of negatives, and 2 and 5 make 7, and we are collecting c's. And then I have nothing to go with the 1b, so I just write 1b at the end. It was a negative 1, so it's got to be a negative 1 still. Okay, that's it, that's all. My letters are different, they can't go any further. Let's take a look at E here. 3x squared. Okay, so I need x squared to go with them. So 5x is no good. It doesn't have a squared. But over here at the end, the minus 1 could go with it. Okay. Negative 5x can go with positive 4x. Let's put them together. 3 minus 1 makes 2x squareds. And negative 5 and positive 4, that's negative 1, with an x attached to it. Those are different things because one has an exponent and one doesn't. even though they're the same letter. And let's try f. 4x squared can go with minus 7x squared, and also another minus 7x squared. Plus 3x can go with plus 8x, and a minus 1x. I'll collect them all up. What's 4 minus 7 minus 7 more? Well, that's negative 10 with some x squareds. Yeah, put them all together. How about positive 3, positive 8, and minus 1? That makes 10 x's. And I'm done. That's it. All the things today should take one line. We'll try G. G, I got some things with no numbers in front. Let's put the number there to remind ourselves. Okay, negative 10, that's a number, just a number. You can go with just the other number. Negative 10 and positive 5 makes negative 5. And in the middle here, 1r and 1r makes 2 r's. All done. So we'll try H, 4x minus 4x. Well, 4 minus 4 makes no x's, 0 x's. Plus 7 and minus 3. That makes positive 4y. Now, I'd be okay with this answer, but it really makes more sense to just write down 4 y's. There are no x's, so I shouldn't have any x's in my answer when I'm done. Okay. That takes us to the end of polynomials, collecting like terms. We can identify them now, and hopefully we can collect them a little bit. Okay. Try the sheet. I'm just practicing everything basically is one line. Make sure you can collect them, put symbols around them, makes it a little bit easier. And the only thing that ever changes is your numbers.